the man of the hour, a great talent, Mr. Ray Wise.
Wonderful to be here in Detroit, Michigan.
Okay. This is show number 2, and the evening one is always the best one, so.
Did you enjoy the movie? What?
Did he say Seinfeld? A fine film. Sounds nothing like Seinfeld.
Seinfeld? What is this?
Sounds nothing like Seinfeld. I know.
All right, thanks.
Okay, so how many times have you been to Detroit, Ray?
How many times what?
Have you been to Detroit?
Well, let's see. A long time ago, I think I was about 1 year old. My mom and dad brought me through Detroit. I went to Windsor and then over to Canada. And my mother was born in Detroit back in 1924. And then she and her family moved to Ohio. But that's another story. We don't have to talk about Ohio in Detroit. I'm from Akron, Ohio, born and raised. The son of a union rubber worker, and the Mohawk Tire Company. And my dad was a local union president, AFL-CIO, United Rubber, Cork, Linoleum, and Plastic Workers of America. And I'm a member, and I have been these 60 years, somewhere around there. Yeah, almost. I'm ancient. Yeah. Okay.
So, growing up in Akron, when was the moment you knew you wanted to be an actor? You're going to pursue this, you're going to go to auditions, and you're going to kind of get it?
Well, you know, I became a movie file at a very early age. You know, I love old movies, and something about seeing them on. My mom and dad used to take me to a drive-in movie called the Starlight Drive-In, and some of my favorite memories are from the Starlight. Watching movies in the car, and you could sit there in your underwear and with a blanket and a pillow, and underwear guy as a kid. Not as a 25-year-old man, you know. That's weird.
That's what you get kicked out of the drive-in.
Yeah, the Starlight Drive-In, I love that. I remember one of my movie experiences with the Starlight was seeing John Wayne play Genghis Khan. And I forget what the name of the movie was, but it was awful. He did this to awful stuff. Anyway, I digress.
So being a lover of movies, when you first realized like you had kind of the acting bug and do you remember your first audition kind of like?
Well, let's see. I remember in the 4th grade I played a Christmas tree in the school play. I just stood there with a bulb with the lights on me and didn't move. And then I went on from there. I started doing all the plays in junior high and then high school, and then I went to college at Kent State University in Kent, Ohio. And fortunately, I graduated the year before the shootings occurred in 1970. I graduated in '69, and I went right to New York. And I think I had I had $200 in my pocket in a suitcase, and I got off the bus on Broadway, 69th Street, and went to a cheap hotel and got a room for $43 a week. Fortunately, I didn't have to stay there too long because I went into an open audition my second week there, an open audition at CBS, and I got a soap opera called Love of Life. And that was the CBS soap at the time, a very popular one, and I was on that for almost 7 years. I did somewhere around 950 half-hour shows. And while I was doing that show during the day, I would do theater at night. I did off-Broadway, and finally on Broadway. And so I got a lot of stage experience in New York while I was doing the soap opera. So I had the most, I had the best of both worlds. I was going to say the boast of both worlds. Yeah, you know what I mean. And and then finally around 1978, I went out to California to try my luck. And I was there for another couple weeks, and I got a guest spot on a show called Charlie's Angels, the original. And I played a Vietnam veteran who had gone a little shaggy with his hair and had long hair and wore my old combat infantry jacket, and I was stalking a female golfer. And that female golfer was a gal by the name of Jamie Lee Curtis. Yeah, and it was her second job, actually, and right after she had done that first Halloween movie. And there she was, guest starring along with me on Charlie's Angels. And we've been friends ever since, and that was in 1978. And it went on from there, and I guess I've guest starred in about 85 or 90 different nighttime shows. And I've been a regular on 5 series, I believe, and most of them not going much longer than 2 years, 2 seasons. For a long time, I was at the 33 or 34 episode mark. It was like a curse, I couldn't get past it. Even Twin Peaks, I only did 15 episodes. So thank God, I had a movie career going at the same time, so movies took me away from that awful curse. And finally, I ended up on a show called Fresh Off the Boat on Friday nights on ABC, and we've been on 6 seasons now, so I got past that 33 episode curse. And that's a basic rundown of my entire life career. And I had a couple of sisters younger than me. I have a wife and a son and a daughter out in California. And my son's 34 years old, my daughter's 32, and he's a Wing Chun Kung Fu Sifu. He's a Wing Chun Kung Fu master. He's been studying it for 10 years, and that's what he does now. Wing Chun all over the place. Teaches and gives private lessons, and he also plays the keyboards in a Latin jazz fusion band in Los Angeles called La Tumba. My daughter, and she is the lead singer in a band called The Go-Ahead out of San Francisco. So you can look them up, The Go-Ahead. In fact, she would appreciate it if you did. And, so I enjoy watching them and their careers, and I'm very passionate about backing them up and being their fan. And they've always been a fan of Dad. And I think most of the time they can't believe some of the stuff I do. And then I come home, and I have dinner with them. And we talk about when they were little, we talked about their days at school right after I just shot something where I blew up or I died on fire or something like that. One time, I'm coming back from a place called Vasquez Rocks. And it's right outside of Los Angeles. I was doing Star Trek: The Next Generation. And I was playing Mintocket. Now, a Mintocket is a lowercase Vulcan. He's got the Vulcan pointy ears and the eyebrows that go up. He looks like a Vulcan, but he doesn't have the brains of a Vulcan. His IQ was way down there. And so I worked all day at Vasquez Rocks. It came time to go home. I didn't want to take the time to take off my makeup. So I drove home that night. It's about midnight, And I still had on the all the Minnetonka makeup. And I guess I was driving a little bit too fast. I got stopped by the highway patrol, and he got out of his car, he came around to this Mike, he looked in the window, and he went, oh! And he went back to his car. It was the craziest thing. So ever since that day, I wore my Minnetonka makeup every time I speak. I don't. I do have about a dozen pairs of ears. Michael Westmore gave me a dozen pairs to take with me. And every Halloween, I just put on those ears and walk around like I'm normal.
And you were on two Star Trek. You were on Voyager?
I was on Voyager too. I played Arturus on Star Trek Voyager. And I had this huge double-brain head. It looked like a big, I don't know, like a big shrimp on the top of my head. Yeah, and that was fun. That was a fun job. And I ran the Jack Nicholson looking like that, and he did a double take, and he couldn't believe it. It was on the Paramount lot. That's where they shot Star Trek Voyager. And he drove by in a convertible by my trailer, and I leaned out and I said, "Hey, Jack!" And he went, "Ah!" And then he almost drove off into one of the studio buildings, so I almost caused him to have an accident. Anyway.
In 1982, fans of 80s horror in here were right from Swamp Thing. So working in the swamp, I'm terrified of gators or any kind of animals and things like that, but that had to be, the humidity in the swamp.
The temperature, the humidity, and all that stuff, yeah. It was about 95 degrees temperature, 98% humidity, and there were alligators, and water moccasins, and black flies. I remember they were a real nuisance. They like to bite right under the tips, And one time, one bit in the forehead and started to swell up, and it would have been awful to try to do the next take with this big red lump on my forehead. So one of the wranglers came up with a solution. He mixed a little bit of Vaseline and some Adolph's meat tenderizer together, slapped it on there, and that meat tenderizer took the swelling right down. They were able to slap some makeup on it, and I could finish the day shooting. Anyway, that's... And all of our rigs and all of our wranglers, they all carried sidearms because we had a lot of alligators surrounding us in the swamp. It was in a place called the Magnolia Plantation, right outside of Charleston, South Carolina. And it was a beautiful, beautiful swamp. And but the water itself was kind of toxic, so if you spent too much time in it, it was very acidic, And so most of the people were like afraid of the alligators. I was not, having grown up with one. Would you like to hear that story?
Absolutely.
It's 1956. I think I'm about 9 years old. And my Uncle Mike, who lived in Miami, Florida, followed a very popular trend at that time and sent me a little baby alligator in the mail. They came in a little corrugated box, cardboard box, with some air holes in it. At that time, it was legal to send alligators through the mail. And I got one, and I opened the box and lived in the living room of our house. And the little baby, about this big, scooted out and ran off and went under the couch, and I didn't find him for 2 days. And I finally found him, and we put him in the bathtub, and that's where we kept him. Unless, of course, we were taking a bath, then we would take him out, put him in a box, and confine him, As he got a little bit bigger, like about a foot or two big, we put a leash around him and actually walk him out the yard, backyard. He loved taking his strolls out in the backyard. His name was Rocky. His given name was Rocco. And I called him Rocky, and long before Sylvester Stallone had any idea that he was going to be Rocky. I think I named him after Rocky Marciano, the ex-heavyweight champion. And so Rocky and I got very close, and his brain is only about this big. So you couldn't expect a whole lot out of Rocky. Except that he knew who I was, he recognized me and my touch. And when he was a baby, we had to learn how to feed him. They have a palate in the back of their mouth that closes off so that when they're swimming through the water, they don't take in water and drown themselves, essentially. And so you have to push down that little palate and take a little bit of raw hamburger and push it down his throat. And that's how I fed him for months, until he would learn to, to eat that raw hamburger himself. And he got to be about 3.5 feet long, pushing 4, and got too big for the bathtub. And so we gave him to the Akron Zoo, where he enjoyed a long life with other alligator buddies. And so that's my Rocky story. So I wasn't afraid of the alligators in the swamp. Adrian was, and even though she played a tough lady in that movie, she was constantly screaming at one thing or another.
So when you knew Rocky had learned to eat, could he basically tell you, did he ever chomp your finger once and you're like, oh, that's enough?
Oh, no, he never bit down on my fingers.
Seems like it'd be sharp.
And he had the little sharp little needle teeth. Okay, let's go on to the next one. Yeah,
talk about Rocky all day.
Oh, I did a movie called, where you saw part of the documentary tonight, I think, right?
Yes, the whole James Lipton moment where in 1987 you did
RoboCop.
Tell us about the experience of RoboCop.
Oh man, huh?
Which took place right here in Detroit, the experience.
It all takes place in Detroit City. So naturally we shot it in Dallas, Texas. And there were a couple of streets in Dallas that they were pretty run down, old storefronts and that sort of thing, and they were scheduled to be razed, to be destroyed, to make room for new developments. So our movie company, the RoboCop company, was allowed to blow up some of those streets, and that's what we did for a couple of nights. We were like, we were in hog heaven. Me and the gang, with our big 50 caliber guns, blowing up everything in sight. And it was great fun. And interesting part about it was I was back in Dallas recently, not too many months ago. Those streets are still there. They never tore them down. They still look terrible. They look like hell. And what's up with Dallas? Tear it down. Okay.
It's been a few years after RoboCop, or 2 years after RoboCop.
Yeah.
That's when of course, David Lynch discussing your
1989. Yeah, I got a phone call from my agent saying, David Lynch, the filmmaker. Yes, I know David Lynch, the filmmaker. Well, he's got a new project. It's called Northwest Passage. And it's a 2-hour pilot for a projected series on ABC. And he'd like to see you for one of the roles in it. And I said, okay, fine, send me the script. So they sent me the script. And I'm reading through it, and I'm trying to guess now, because they didn't tell me what part he could possibly want me for. I thought Sheriff Truman. Yeah, I could be a sheriff. In fact, I think I'd like to be a sheriff. Have a badge, walk around like a sheriff. Wasn't a sheriff. Well, then who else could be? Ben Warren. Sure. The richest man in town, right? Owns everything, has his fingers into everything. Devious, wears a nice suit. Yeah, that's me, the suit guy. For a while there in Hollywood, I was always wearing the nice Armani suits, you know, playing these lawyers and doctors and politicians, all of them rat bastards. And so I said, yeah, bend the horn. Yeah, I could do that, that's fine. So finally, I called up my manager and I said, so what part does he want? He has an idea for him. He said, for Leland Palmer. I said, Leland Palmer, wait a minute, I gotta read the script again. So I opened up the script and I see the first scene that Leland's in. It says, well, Leland finds out that his daughter is dead and he cries. And then Leland goes to the mortuary to identify his daughter, and he cries. And then he's up in his daughter's bedroom with the police while they're searching for her diary, and he cries. I said, all this guy does is cry. And then it struck me, therein lies the challenge, doing different degrees of crying. Different degrees of grief, showing my range in griefness, you know. And so I took it as a challenge. Yeah, I can play this guy. I'll show you. I should have been the sheriff. I should have been Ben Horn. But I'm going to play Leland Palmer to the bottoms of my shoes, to the top of my head, you know, from the bottom of my shoes to the top of my head. And so I went to meet with David. Well, we didn't talk about the script or his project at all. We talked about our first cars. And I think his was a Volkswagen Bug. And mine, and you're gonna think this is a little strange, mine was a 1960 Alfa Romeo convertible. The Spider Veloce, Italian. And it was red with a black top. And I paid $1,100 cash for my hard-earned money for that car in 1965. I was 5 years old. And I had it my senior year in high school. The car lasted about a year. And then everything started to fall apart on it. And the parts were too expensive. Anyway, that's a long story. I got rid of the car, but for a year, it was a real chick magnet, I'll tell you. I made out pretty well in my senior year in high school with the girls who wanted to ride in my car. And that old cliche about having the convertible that attracts the beautiful gals is true. It did. And then, of course, the second I gave away the car, all that ended. And after that time, yeah, so anyway, so we talked about our cars, and then we talked about actor friends that we had in common. A character actor by the name of Kenneth McMillan, who was the evil Baron Harkonnen in Dune, the movie Dune that David did. And that was it. And we had a nice chat, you know, for about 20, 25 minutes. Then I didn't hear anything for a couple of days, and then I got a phone call saying, yeah, David wants you to play Leland Palmer, but we have to go to ABC and get approval of the ABC executives. Now, ABC at that time was run by an outfit called Capital Cities, and they were not quite sure what this whole Twin Peaks thing was, and who David Lynch was, really. But the only way David would make a deal with ABC was that he would be given total autonomy over everything, and no questions asked by ABC. They couldn't. David either does it his way or he doesn't want to do it at all. So ABC gave him carte blanche. No, it says, go ahead, you make this series the way you want to, or at least the pilot anyway. And we won't say anything about it or put any restrictions on it. So we had to go in front of the ABC executives for approval. Every actor did. And I remember the day that I went, Richard Beamer was also there, who played Ben Horn. And he and I were there at the same time to brief with the executives. We were going to do a scene together. Well, David decided that we were going to he was going to put a little twist on that scene. So he had Richard read Leland Palmer, and I read Ben Horn. And the ABC executives loved it. They bought it, and that's how smart they were at the time. And that was my approval. So then we went up to the Seattle area on an island to shoot the pilot, and had a wonderful time shooting it. The cast, we got along very well, but we never ever thought it would go beyond the 2-hour pilot. I mean, I went to the first screening of it, that David had for the cast and crew, and we all sort of looked at it and thought, well, they're never going to put this on TV. No, boy, it was nice to do it, and it'll be a good thing to see 20 years from now, I suppose, but they're never going to put this on TV. Well, they put it on TV, and it had a tremendous impact right from the get-go, and around the world, actually. Ended up playing in about 70 foreign countries, and over different. I remember going to Romania to make a movie, and everybody in that country knew me as Leland Palmer. And I would leave the hotel and cross the street to go to a grocery store and buy a bottle of wine or something like that, and the cars would stop offering me a ride to the store. I said, well, it's right over here, And they all knew that show. It was a nighttime show in Romania, one of the only nighttime shows they had on the air there at the time. And it was a big hit in countries like that. And Spain, the same thing, France, Italy. In Italy, I was at a screening of several of the Twin Peaks episodes, and they had this guy with this incredible voice who dubbed me in Italian. And I mean, his voice was low. It was like coming out of his socks. It was so, he sounded like Marcello Mastroianni. And I thought to myself, watching me and listening to him, boy, with my acting chops and that guy's voice, the sky's the limit. Yeah, and so it was very popular all around the world. And another crazy story, 1996, the year, I'm in Atlanta doing a series called Savannah. And it's the Olympics are in Atlanta at the same time. So one evening I go to the Olympic Village to see James Brown and his band of renown. And Michael Jordan's going to be there, and Scottie Pippen, and it's going to be quite a night of listening to James and celebration and all that. In this big tent they had set up. So I was there, and there was a film crew there from Russia. And in 1996, at that time, they were seeing Twin Peaks for the first time in Russia. And so when they saw me there, they got excited, and they came over and they wanted to film me and do a little interview. So I agreed. And the Russian guy, the moderator there, he asked me the question, who killed Leland Palmer? He said with this cute little accent of his. And I, without thinking, said, what? I did. And then it dawned on me, wait a minute, they probably haven't seen that episode yet. So I quickly said, or not. Thank God I said that, because I could have spoiled it for an entire country. And a country we're not very friendly with. Even worse, so yeah, that was that experience.
That's awesome. And then like being on, you know, all the magazine covers and who killed Laura Palmer being as big as, you know,
yeah, T-shirts and yeah, the whole thing. Yeah.
Twin Peaks and The Simpsons was like the thing. But,
yeah, we were on Saturday Night Live, and Phil Hartman played me.
Yeah.
Poor old Phil, wonderful comedian, good actor. He played me, and you know, he's gone now, tragically. And they did a nice little send-up on Saturday Night Live. Kyle, I believe, was the guest host that show, and Kyle, I think, really got the most out of the show. He got to be guest host of Saturday Night Live. And he got to go to Cannes. And, he got to meet Queen Elizabeth. Me, I'm with Mike. I'm kidding. Oh.
You can tell we've done a few shows together.
Yeah, we have done a lot of shows together. And Queen Elizabeth, right? Angelo Badalamenti, our composer for Twin Peaks and the movie, got a call from Paul McGraner one day, and Paul wanted Angelo to come over to England to, you know, Apple Records and do some music with him. He wanted to collaborate on something. So Angelo, of course, went as fast as he could, and he was over there, and they started to work together. But the first day, Paul said, "I have this funny story. Would you like to hear it, Angelo?" I said, "Yeah." Well, I was invited to come to Buckingham Palace to a reception that the Queen was having, and I was going to play her some of my new music. And so I went, and I'm in the reception line, and the Queen's going down the line saying hello to everyone. And she got to Paul, and Paul said, "Your Majesty, I have some new music." And, "Your Majesty, I have some new music. I'd like to play for you." And she said, "Well, Mr. McCartney, you'll have to wait. It's 10 minutes of 9, and I have to go upstairs and watch Twin Peaks." This is a true story. You can go online, Angelo Badalamenti, and you'll be able to read that story. The Queen of England and her husband, Prince Philip, both watched Twin Peaks faithfully. I don't know who their favorite character was, but I'd like to think it was me. That's my Queen story.
That's awesome. That makes me want to go like track down the moment when Paul McCartney told that story about the event, and then like see what episode was airing that night.
Yeah.
Just to see
What she saw that night.
Right.
Yeah, it could have been one of my goodies.
I was gonna say it could have been the ultimate.
Oh, my demise.
Yeah.
Oh man. Yeah, boy, what a show that was. That was a long day. That was about a 15, 16-hour day, and it was. That day, it seemed like my entire career flashed before my eyes on that day. It seemed like the beginning and the end of everything. Playing Leland Palmer was one of the greatest experiences of my life as an actor, certainly, and being in that situation as a person, it was great. And then to see it all come crashing to an end for some silly reason, like ABC wanted to find out who the killer was as fast as they could. You know. David wanted to keep it going on forever, really. And he probably would have touched on every character in town, and then the killer probably would have ended up being the garbage man or something, something like that. But no. ABC in Cap Cities, they wanted to have a resolution because, we can't keep our fans waiting. And so they sort of forced David and Mark to pick out somebody to be the killer of Laura Palmer. And I didn't want it to be me. I certainly did not want it to be me. I didn't want to leave town. And I knew that I'd either have to die or go to prison. And then the thought of being the killer of my own daughter on the show just didn't sit right with me. And I had a little 2-year-old daughter of my own at the time. And the idea of that just was anathema. In fact, I had some bad nights thinking about how it was going to be resolved, and do I really want to do this? Do I want to be forever branded as Leland Palmer, the killer of his own daughter? And for a couple of weeks there, it got pretty serious with me. And then, before the reveal show, David called me in for a meeting. And he called me into one of the rooms there in the studio. And I came into the room, and it was dark. Not quite this dark, but dark. No furniture in the room, just a lava lamp in the corner. And sitting not far from the lava lamp, cross-legged on the floor in a little circle, was David Lynch, Mark Frost, Cheryl Lee, and Richard Beamer. And I came in and I sat cross-legged on the floor and completed the circle, waiting for David to say something. And he finally looked at me, he reached over, touched my knee, and he said, "Ray, it's you. It was always you." And I went, "Oh, no." I think I said, "Shit." Pardon my language, but it just popped out. I couldn't help it. I didn't want this to be. And he says, "But don't worry, Ray. It's going to be a beautiful thing." And that's one of David's favorite expressions. It's going to be a beautiful thing. Whenever we would question anything, does this make sense, or is this too much, or is this really that weird? He would always say, "Don't worry, it's going to be a beautiful thing." And then he went on to explain to me that I would die in Agent Cooper's arms, and he would be reciting the Tibetan Book of the Dead, and I would be staring down a long, dark tunnel, and at the end of it there would be a bright light, and in that light would be my daughter Laura, with both of her hands reaching out to me, forgiving me for what I did to her. And he painted such a redeeming picture that I went right along with everything, That was a beautiful thing, And I did that episode where I beat Maddie to death, and I'm looking in the mirror and you see Bob, and I put on the rubber gloves, and I sent Maddie all the way back to Missoula, Montana. Cheryl Lee, playing her cousin Maddie, was killed by 3 different people that day. By me as Leland Palmer, by Richard Beamer as Ben Horn, and by Frank Silva as Bob. And David did that because he didn't even want the crew to know who the real killer was. So they knew it was one of the 3 of us. I would put all of my money on me. But nobody really knew for sure. And so poor Cheryl, she went through that day getting beat up by 3 different guys. And they could have carried her out probably in a stretcher. That was about a 16 or 17 hour day, I remember. And really rough stuff. And the adrenaline starts pumping, and then you have to do it many times, and each time you got to get that thing going again, and it can be trying. Although my father would say, "Hey, it's not factory work. Come on, you're an actor. That's fun stuff."
And one of the bravest moments on television was that Death and Maddie, the fact that ABC aired it in the form that you could still, you know, see it today.
Uncut. You don't, I mean, at the time it was unheard of to see something like that really on network television. And it was on the front page of every calendar section of every big city in the United States the next day. That picture of me looking in the mirror and seeing Bob. And then I had to wave bye-bye to Twin Peaks. I had to say bye. And then the next episode, they had a memorial for me that I watched at home. And it was sad. It was very sad. So I was thrilled when, about a year later, David came to me with the idea of doing Firewalk with me, a prequel to the series. And then, of course, he sent me the script that I thought was incredible. And then I got to hang out a little bit with David Bowie and that kind of thing. So it was kind of fun guy. He was a great fellow.
That's amazing.
The whole Firewalk with me experience was great, being up there at Washington State again. And, I'll tell you, there's nothing, you know that scene where in the boxcar on the train? We did that, I think about 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning. In this old train that was on an old decrepit track somewhere in the woods up in the Pacific Northwest. And to be in that boxcar doing what I was doing at 2 o'clock in the morning was a real amazing experience. Just to stand there and whip out that plastic sheeting to throw over the body of Laura was, well, you know, it's very effective. It really does a number on your head a little bit. So I had to have a little snort of Jameson's when I got back to my hotel. And any excuse to have a little snort of Jameson's is fine with me.
Yeah, that whole, you and I were talking about the ending of Firewalk for that last 20 minutes is probably some of David's, the best, you know, just...
Yeah, the last 20 minutes, I think.
It does.
I think it sums up David's work completely. Yeah, and I think Twin Peaks did too. Some of the themes that he touched on in you know, Blue Velvet and Lost Highway and Mulholland Drive, I think were encapsulated and complete in Twin Peaks Firewalk. And you know, to show this whole idea of showing everyday life as it is, with all of its characters, but always knowing that underneath it's roiling. It's a mix of hot emotion and passion and secrets. It was like seeing an ant walking into the top of the ant colony, and all you see is the little hole of the ant going in the little hole. That's all you see, that little ant, that H.H. Cooper ant going into the hole. But underneath is all these other ants, and the eggs underneath, and the queen laying the eggs. And that's David showing the underbelly of life. That everyone has secrets, and they sometimes carry them forever without ever telling anyone else about them. We all have them. And that's really what David's work is about. The secrets that people carry with them. And
absolutely. And I don't think there's another filmmaker that makes you as a human being, and every emotion you can feel, whether it's a beautiful dream, a nightmare, happy, sad, in love, heartbroken, all in a 2-hour, you know, it's there. Every single one of those films. It's
like a
roller coaster of, you know.
Yeah, 2 hours. You know, the original cut of Firewalk with Me was over 5 hours long. But the distributors, of course, didn't want to go along with that. They wanted their film to be able to make some money, I guess. And, so David had to cut it down to the length that you saw here tonight, and reluctantly, by the way. And but you saw a lot of it in that box set. Missing pieces, yes. Some great scenes were cut out. Some that I was in, and good stuff that should have remained in the final product, I think.
Yeah, with that, it was such a hard decision to
Yeah.
go through that and have to cut entire characters out of the cut, because I know Edward McGill was in that,
And he wasn't, yeah. A lot of people, well, not a lot, but there was some that didn't show up in the movie.
There's that great scene with David Bowie where he goes into the hotel and Philip Jeffries disappears and jumps time, comes back screaming.
Yeah.
The hotel manager relieves himself from the fear of seeing David Bowie appear right before him. And, so for those of you who haven't seen the Missing Pieces, check it out. It's a pretty 90 minutes of Firewalk with Me footage put together as one film.
And now I think a new collection's coming out now. I think
It is December 11th.
with season 3 on it also.
Yeah.
That's a story in and of itself, isn't it?
Yeah. So
Season 3.
When David called you about season 3.
Yeah, I got a call, and I wasn't there actually to receive the call, so it was on my answering machine thing, and so I played it, and the message was something like this: "Hello, Ray. David Lynch here. How you doing? We're going to go back to Twin Peaks. The town's still there, Ray. It's still there. Call this number," and that was it. I called the number. It turned out to be his casting director. The whole deal about setting up whatever, and they told me that I indeed was going to be in season 3, and then I got visions in my head of a glorious season 3 with me playing a main part in all of it. I had one line, and I said it backwards. The line was, "Find Laura," backwards, in the red room. And that was it. And they showed a little clip of Firewalk with Me, and also one of the later episodes. I thought, it's going to be between two worlds, the real world and the other world. And I was in the other world, so I was going to have a significant role in season 3. No, he went, he got Jim Belushi, I think, too. And various others. It's about 200 new cast members. Everybody from Eddie Vedder to Richard Chamberlain, my goodness. Everybody and his brother wanted to be in season 3 of Twin Peaks. And so they were able to sign up a lot of artists to be, a lot of actors and actresses to be in season 3 for almost no money. Showtime, notoriously cheap. Should I say that? Nobody's recording this, right?
Just chop that a little bit before you put it up on YouTube.
Hey, I'm too old. I'm too old to be afeared. I've been around, I've been doing this for 51 years, nothing's gonna hurt me now. I can always just sit back and pick oranges in my backyard. I have a nice orange tree, a lemon tree, a lime tree, I have an avocado tree, and I raise tomatoes in the backyard, and peppers, all sorts of hot peppers, because I like hot food. And so I can live very easily in my own backyard without even going to the grocery store, just about. I just go out there with a salt shaker and start eating tomatoes right off the bat. Love it. So they can't hurt me. I'm bulletproof. I've got my SAG pension. No, I can say anything I want, and I'm not afraid. Anyway, they didn't pay, they got everybody for nothing, almost. Because everybody wanted to be in season 3 of Twin Peaks. And then I saw it, I participated. First of all, I shot that one day and did my line. Had a good time. So I saw Richard Beamer again and Cheryl and a couple of other people, and had a great time with the reunion, with David and working again. And my only thought was that I wished I was in it more. So to say that I'm bitter about it, I'm not bitter. But yes, I am. No. It was visually stunning, that 3rd season, and that 8th episode was pretty amazing. And but I could have done it without Las Vegas.
I would say
Season 4, yes. For a few years there, I talked about Twin Peaks coming back, and they tried to silence me, Mark, and I don't think David did, because David's a free spirit. He's free breathing. He doesn't. If you want to say something or do something, go ahead and do it. But others who were more possessive, I guess, of the Twin Peaks brand, didn't want me to talk about the possibility of it coming back, because all this time they had plans for it to come back. So I'm talking about it, kind of nonchalantly at various functions, and I had this wonderful idea that Leland Palmer had a twin brother named Leonard. As luck would have it, an identical twin. Although I think maybe Leonard had a mustache. Leonard Palmer comes to town to find out the true story behind what happened to his brother. And I thought, man, this is the way to go. And I thought I could really turn David on to the idea. But no, Mark had already done this book, and the whole thing was laid out, and my idea was just down the drain. And so, although I enjoyed watching all 18 episodes that I was in for the most part, I still have this feeling of wanting more somehow. And I hope someday maybe something more will be done. And I wouldn't bet on anything.
Well, I'll tell you, season 3, you may have had 2 words, but the look on your face, the way you played that scene, you can see all the grief and where Leland's trapped, and the thing is you always bring it to everything I've ever seen you in, any performance, no matter how big or small, 110%. And I'm just surprised there should be an Oscar right now. Like, this is, Firewalk was an Oscar performance, and I'm so lucky to share the stage with you like this and you to talk.
Thank you. I think Cheryl really deserved an Oscar for that performance. She just ran the whole gamut of emotion and physical shit. It was just an amazing performance. She was a real trooper. Tirelessly performing, sometimes very long days. Just a great performance. Just flat out. Just opened up her soul. And I did from time to time also. And what were you saying now?
Oh, it's just
oh, you were talking
about it every time.
Yes.
And you go for these roles and just across the board, like even when he got involved with Tim and Eric, and how
Tim and Eric.
So then there's funny Ray Wise, there's scary Ray Wise, and every time.
Tim and Eric were big Twin Peaks fans, yeah. And see, that's what happened. My doing this show for a few years after the show was over, I kept getting meetings with producers and the writers and stuff like who just wanted to meet me, or to meet Leland actually. under the guise of perhaps offering me a job. I remember Diane Keaton, who directed one of the episodes of Twin Peaks. I was already gone by the time she was directing the episode. She was doing a movie. I think it was going to be a movie for television. I believe so. Anyway, she was going to direct it, and she wanted to see me for one of the roles. And of course, it was the role of a father, I believe. And so I went to meet with her and all of her people, and had a very nice meeting. And she was very complimentary, and how she wished she could have worked with me on the show on Twin Peaks. And I thought, well, this is nice, you know. I think she's gonna give me this part. She gave it to Bo Bridges. And it dawned on me, she just wanted to meet me. And that happened over and over. Not everybody didn't give me the job, some people did. In fact, I did this season 3 of Fargo, where I did an episode, 2 episodes of Fargo, the television series, and it was because the creator of Fargo was a Twin Peaks fan. And what was I saying originally? Who was the original Twin Peaks fan I was talking about?
Oh, Tim and Eric.
Oh yeah, Tim and Eric. They were big fans of the show. So they called me in to do their awesome television show. And I believe I taught office hugs. What was it? Yes. The perfect business hug, yes. Good memory. I didn't remember that. Yes, etiquette and how to properly hug your office mate. And without it being too much. And of course, so that HR will approve of it. Human relations, every company has one now. And we have meetings and outline of how we're to behave. You know, the 20th Century Fox, for Fresh Off the Boat, we can no longer tell dirty jokes on the set. Took away like 3/4 of my material. not that, you know, not that I'm salacious or unnecessarily filthy, but you know, every once in a while you want to tell a joke where you can interject some words, and no, you cannot do that. If somebody complains about that, you're in trouble. Also, you can't put your arm around anybody unless they give you like a verbal permission. It's kind of silly, really. Although necessary, I'm not saying it's not necessary, but the degree to which they take it seems kind of silly. For instance, I can't do that to you.
You suck. So.
But don't let that, if we meet out here in the lobby, do not let that stop you. Because I don't mind somebody giving me a hug, and in fact, I enjoy it. So, anybody who wants to hug me can. I grant permission right now. The authorities will not have to be called, and everything will be on the up and up. And so I want to get that out of the way before we meet face to face.
And also, we want to give the audience a chance to answer questions.
Oh, ask questions. Sure.
So if you're thinking of any questions,
no, they're not going to answer the questions.
Well, ask them. Can I say answer?
Although I could ask them.
Okay.
Anybody have a question, please? I'll try to answer.
Right here?
Yeah.
Here, pass around any questions.
Yeah.
playing your Leland in Twin Peaks, it's a very physical role. A lot of emoting, but not a lot of talking all the time. Were you allowed to improvise, or was David Lynch directing you on every little look that you made?
Not a whole lot of improvisation. Script-wise, you know, word-wise, we say the words as writ. But a lot of some improvisation in the way we say the words, and in the way we move and act and touch and feel, and we're free to be expressive, you know, with our bodies and our faces, but pretty much stick to the words. But every once in a while, you know, you can interject a word or two or a phrase, and then David likes it. He'll say, "Yeah, that's fine. You can even do more there if you want." And we would have the occasion to do that from time to time.
Because I wondered if there was anything you felt that, I mean, you emoted so much in that role. Was there anything you felt that you wanted to say verbally, or were you always just happy with the
Well, I'll give you a little example of what I'm talking about. The script says that Leland starts dancing with himself in his grief. Everybody else is dancing on the floor with partners. Leland starts dancing with himself. And that's what the script says. But how I dance is pretty much up to me. So I was the one who and what's her name? Hyperlore sees me doing that, and she starts doing this. Cover for this grief-stricken man, and it like it was a moment for dancing. Pretty soon the reindeer dance caught on, and that was my creation. Yeah, and so a lot of moments like that. For instance, a scene where I was being interviewed, and I'm slipping in and out of Bob, and I howl like a wolf. And I go, woo, 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 woo. That was me.
Chills just shot right on my back when you did that. It's just like,
Thank you very much.
And it's hard for us to see you up here with the lights, so Nick's going to come around to you, so just use the microphone so we can hear you too.
Yeah, you should see it from up here.
Hello.
Hello.
Hi, so I'm a working makeup artist in the industry, so I just have a question. So you are an actor that's worked in like the practical Hollywood. So I was just wondering, when you were acting back then, did you realize anything when you were acting then, and then when you came back and acted in Twin Peaks now, did you realize any differences when you acted back then? Did that make sense? I don't know if that makes
just
sense.
one more time, just again, make sure.
Okay. So everything back then was pretty practical. Like the sets were actually real, makeup was actually real. So everything now is very digital. So I just wanted, did you have trouble like acting? Was there anything that you like? Were there any differences?
Well, no, I'll tell you. For the pilot, we used a lot of real sets. We were actually in an actual house for the Palmer house. But that house was recreated on a soundstage in San Fernando Valley, in California. In fact, that's where we did most of Twin Peaks, right on Balboa Boulevard, not in a community called Chatsworth, right in the middle of San Fernando Valley. And that's where we did most of Twin Peaks. They had all the sets reconstructed on sound stages there. The Great Northern Hotel lobby and the hallways of the Great Northern and the bedrooms. And the Palmer house was there, and it looking exactly like the real thing. And so it was a combination of in the pilot anyway, of real settings and then studio settings. But then once we got into doing the series, it was all pretty much studio, except sometimes we would go to Lake Hollywood and drive around the lake. You know, that scene where I sing Surrey with the fringe on top, driving in my convertible with the body in the trunk of my car. And I take the golf club and it looks like I'm gonna whack Cooper with it. And that was around Lake Hollywood. And the way it's shot and with some of the pine trees that are there, it could be mistaken for the Pacific Northwest. You know. They were very conscious about that, about making it look as much like the Pacific Northwest as possible. So.
Yeah, that was just my only thing. Like everything now is like it's turning into like sets and it's turning very digital. So I was just wondering if like the transitioning of that was difficult for you or anything like that.
No, not really difficult. Are you okay? Okay.
Okay. Next question. I was just wondering, in that one episode where you are dancing with the picture of Laura with the record on the turntable, is it true that you actually cut your hand?
Yeah.
And you still have a scar from it?
I still have it right here, yeah. It's here, excuse me. Yeah, I smashed the photo down and the glass that was covering the photograph broke into a million pieces and one of the pieces cut my hand and started to bleed kind of profusely and onto the photograph, and so then I got creative and did some finger painting with my own blood. And, you know, these little accidents happen sometimes. It was my apocalypse now moment. So I tried to make the most of it. As long as they were wasting film on it, I thought I better do something with it, and that's what I did.
Hi. So, to me, the most arresting scene in the original series is the Mary Dote scene. And was that completely in the script, or because that really is where?
That was in the script. They wrote that. I couldn't believe that when I read that one.
And is it true?
I couldn't believe that that my hair turned white after I killed Jacques Renault. Anyway, But I can say that when I murdered Jacques Renault in his hospital bed, and I did the silent scream, without hearing anything. That's my invention. That was me. Al Pacino did it much later in Godfather 3. I think he probably will watch me first.
By the way, this crooner right here still has the pipes. So when you hear him sing, he's still amazing.
Oh, yeah. Well, yeah, I like to drag that song out every now and again and sing it. I couldn't possibly do it here. Oh, Mersey dotes and dozy dotes and little lambsy divey, a kiddly divey too, wouldn't you? Oh, Mersey dotes and dozy dotes and little lambsy divey, a kiddly divey too, wouldn't you? All of the words sound clear and funny to your ear, a little bit jumpy and jivey. Say Mersey oats and dozy oats and little lambsy divey. Oh, Mersey dotes and dozy dotes and little lambsy divey, a kiddly divey too, wouldn't you? Singing that song. And then, of course, later in the lobby, in the club at the Great Northern, I serenaded Richard Beamer with Getting to Know You, Getting to Know All About You, Getting to Like You, Getting to Hope You Like Me. And that's what I hope.
All right, next question.
very super important question. I'm 30-some years old, and I'm still terrified of Bob, and have nightmares of you looking in the mirror and seeing Bob. So is there something that you can tell me about working with Frank that might put those nightmares to bed?
Working with Frank Silva, is there anything you can tell her that might put her nightmares of him to bed?
Yeah, Frank Silva, the sweetest man in the world. A lovely, kind, wonderful gentleman. He was a prop man, you know, and he was hanging around the corner of the set one day, and David spied him and thought, yep, he could be Bob. And the character of Bob couldn't be further away from Frank Silva. Just the sweetest human being. I have to keep saying that because he was. And unfortunately, he's no longer with us. You know, he passed away. And he's, you know, everybody loved him, and certainly no one was ever afraid of him, except that one little scene where he had to beat up, you know, Maddie, and he had to try and look mean and kill her, you know, and it was difficult for him because you know, he wasn't really an actor, so he had to do all that snarling and everything, and he had to be prompted and sort of work through it by David and to get him to, you know, to do the right thing at the right time. But he was a wonderful guy. And if you knew him or met him, you certainly would never ever be afraid of him. No. So you can end your nightmares right now. And just dream sweet dreams.
So he's no Freddy Krueger, is what you're saying.
There's no what?
He's no Freddy Krueger, is what you're saying. He's not going to haunt your dreams anymore. He's a very
Oh yeah, that reminds me of a story. You got a minute? We have, when I was in Romania making a movie, I was making it with Robert Englund, the guy who played Freddy Krueger, and he and I, one day, went sightseeing. We went to Dracula's castle, and Casper Van Dien had his camera, and he was taking videos of Freddy Krueger and Leland Palmer walking into Dracula's castle. And he thought that was a great moment.
That's awesome.
Yeah, so did I.
That should be a poster. Just a picture of you guys.
Yes. Yeah.
That's awesome. Next question.
Hi.
Hi.
When Fire Walk with Me was first released, it was unfortunately the target of a lot of hostility by critics.
Yeah, they got booed. They got booed by the Cannes Film Festival audience. Yeah.
Right, and so, like, how did you feel about the film after completing it? What was your reaction to these type of critics, and how nice has it been that things have really turned around?
Well, I'll tell you, I wasn't really reading what the critics were saying about the movie at the time, because I thought that's, you know, everything was written, you know, everything in the world was written about the show when it was on the air, and I read reams and reams of stuff, and by that time, I just wasn't into reading that stuff anymore, but it is true that when I saw the first screening of Fire Walk with Me, I was a little disturbed by that first 25 or 30 minutes of the movie. The whole introduction of the new FBI characters, you know, Chris
Isaac and Kiefer Sutherland.
Kiefer Sutherland. Although they did a fine job, but there was something about that beginning. In other words, what I'm saying is the movie didn't really start for me until we were in town at the high school with Laura. And But then, as the years went on, and I would maybe see the movie once every couple of years, go to a screening, or I played it on television. I started feeling differently about all of it, and seeing that beginning is necessary and dramatically necessary. And my feelings about the movie graduated from something that was less than perfect to now I consider it a masterpiece. And it was a growing process. I had to see it over and over quite a few times. And for me, there are certain sections of it that are almost like a religious experience, if I ever had one. And like you said, the last 20 or 25 minutes for me are just pure gold. So I hope that answers your question a little bit.
Yes, thank you very much.
Yeah. The critics didn't really bother me. Although I was, a little disappointed that we got booed at Cannes, but then I wasn't there. It took Kyle. Didn't take moi.
Next question.
So I'm just wondering, David is such a visionary and an enigma, and I'm just wondering, personally, working so closely with him, what would you say is your most profound memory of him, or something that he said to you that was very profound?
Oh, wow, that's an excellent question. So many things that really rang the bell for me. The little things. He had the uncanny ability of saying just the right thing before we had to shoot a certain scene to get us going, get our engines going, to stimulate us, thinking in the right way, the right direction. Could have been just a few words, a little phrase. And I'm trying to remember exactly one that I thought profound, although I think just about everything that comes out of his mouth is kind of profound. In a kind of a cornball way. He was a Boy Scout in Montana, and that's how he grew up. He's a regular guy, and he's so set in his routines. He loves cheeseburgers and chocolate milkshakes, and pretty much would like to have that for lunch every day of the year. He's very heavy into transcendental meditation. He believes in it, and he would like to have it in every school in the United States. To have every child learn how to sit quietly for a few moments, close their eyes, breathe deeply, and just try to concentrate on one calming thought. And I think it would help them, certainly in school, and would help anybody to slow down our 1,000-mile-an-hour lives, especially in today's world with social media, the cell phones and Twitter. And I'm not on Facebook, but I am on Twitter. If you want to tweet me, go ahead. The real Ray Wise. Yeah, because there are a couple other Ray Wises that aren't the real Ray Wises. Nice guys, but I don't know them. So in today's world.
Okay, any more questions? We're done. Front runner, wherever Nick is with Mike. See you coming.
Hi, I was just wondering, as an actor, when when you're taking direction from David Lynch on a very surreal scene, how hard is it to get into the correct mindset of something you can't really understand without seeing it? Maybe David Lynch is the only one who really understands it.
Yeah, that happened a lot, of not quite understanding what exactly was going on at the time, at that moment. And David would sometimes explain it away. Other times, he would leave it to us to try and discover it. He's a firm believer, I think, in just letting things happen, and then whatever you want it to be, that's what it is. In other words, and that includes you as a spectator or observer of it. You can make whatever of it that you want, and whatever it is, David would go along with. He would love that. He's just trying to elicit, a response to what he's done, and the most important one is yours. Totally subjective. And as far as he's concerned, you're the most important person in the world. And whatever you think it is, that's what it is. And so sometimes we would not know what was going on in the scene and discover it several days later or next week's script. But like people in life, every day you don't know what you're doing really, or what's going to happen tomorrow, or what the people in your life are really doing. Like I said, we all have our secrets, and sometimes we carry the biggest ones all the way to the grave, to the end, without ever telling anybody. And what David does sometimes is just reveals some of that in the characters that he's drawn. And so we experience stuff just as people experience life.
Thank you.
Yeah. Did any of that make sense? No? Yeah.
Hi.
It's a big, yeah.
I was
I see
wondering.
one girl there, long hair, and the reflection is on your hair, and you're like the only person in the audience to me. Do you know who I'm talking about? You see it? You have, yeah, you're moving. Go like this. That's you. Yes. I've seen you the whole time. And it feels good to have you there. It's like I have, it's my point of reference.
That hug has to happen.
Yeah, you're the hub of this audience.
Hi. I was just wondering if you had to do anything special to prepare for Laura's death scene in Fire Walk with Me, since it was such an intense scene.
If I had any what prepared?
If you had to do anything special, different to prepare for the role, because it was such an intense
Oh,
scene.
to actually do that scene?
Yeah.
Doing some of those scenes, it took different kinds of preparation for each and every one of them. Just to get myself in the right frame of mind to be able to do it. And sometimes I just have to go off and stare in a dark corner and just concentrate all by myself, away from everybody else. Or some other times I can joke around with somebody about what we're just about to do, and I'm gonna grab you by the hair, just a little grab, and then I'll probably kill you. Whatever it took to get ready for the scene is what I did, just to be able to put myself in the right place. For that scene, it was a bear, I'll tell you. And I think before I did it, what was most necessary was to hug her. To hug her and tell her from one actor to another actor that I love her and that what we're going to do is something that we have to do. But that that I'm with her all the way and I love her. So that was the most important thing, to know that. Before we started shooting the show, she gave me a little picture of us, a picture of her in the 4th grade. One of those class pictures, the little kind. And I put it in my Leland Palmer wallet. And I kept it in the back pocket of my pants throughout the whole show. She was one of the episodes. And then when it was over, I gave her the little picture back. But I carried her picture with me through all of it. Just a little sideline. I tell you. All those little things, all those little things mean something, It's like athletes after hitting a home run across home plate, they point up to God, It's just something that means something to them that makes the whole experience more meaningful. And it could be just the slightest little things, like carrying her picture in my wallet, back pocket of my pants. Okay. Do we have any more? Yes.
Hi, thank you. I definitely consider David Lynch to be one of a dwindling number of real auteurs left in cinema. And I count Paul Verhoeven as one of them as well. And you mentioned briefly RoboCop, and I just wondered what it was like working with Paul Verhoeven.
Oh my, the crazy Dutchman. Yeah, Paul Verhoeven. When we can I say that?
I think so.
Okay.
I think we're all
Yeah, we're all adults here. He would always say after we shot a take and he was less than thrilled with it, he would always say, anyway, I suppose we are fucked. What?
It's so encouraging.
Yeah, very encouraging. And he would say that every time something just didn't go right. We are effed. And he was a crazy guy, but he loved his gang of bad guys. He said that we were his favorites in the whole movie, and he treated us that way. And we were like kids playing on a playground in the sandbox. We were just having a hell of a good time, blowing things up and running around and chasing after that robo. And I was able to shoot at him with my .50 caliber gun, and then my poor mate tried to melt on me after he looked at the acid lab. That was a football train.
Yeah.
You had to wear that makeup of melting flesh. Looked very realistic, believe me, because I was only about a foot away from him. It scared the hell out of me, and I didn't want to touch him. And then, of course, at the end of the movie, I get blown up. So there's this construction shack up there with me in it, and then they cut to a long shot, and Nancy Allen shoots a rocket up at me and blows up a construction shack. Well, they had this dummy in there, dressed in my clothes. And you couldn't even see the dummy in the shot, but they had it there just to make sure that if somebody saw anything, it would look like it was me. Well, that dummy and the clothes on it blew up, and then they gave me that outfit after it was all over. And I took it home. It's in my closet. Keep it wrapped in plastic. And it's just a nice little reminder of my experiences as a in tatters. It's in tatters, you know, it's just, yeah.
Do you even have it on a hanger, or is it just kind of?
No, it's on the hanger. I was able to get it on a hanger. Yeah, there's enough of it to do that.
Never really worked out.
But we had a ball making that film. It was one of the most fun times I've ever had making a movie.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Huh? Am I? Oh, sure. I'm always open to that. Yeah. I've done Shakespeare on Broadway, and I did Romeo and Juliet on Broadway, and I did Tartuffe for Moliere play on Broadway. And let's see. Off Broadway, I've done a lot of Eugene O'Neill. And in 1983, I won the Obie Award for a Sam Shepard play called The Tooth of Crime at La Mama in the East Village. And I think I've done about 85 plays professionally in my years. And I would, you know, but doing a play now involves, even if this is a limited engagement, it involves 3 or 4 months at least of solid time that you have to devote to that project. And so it would have to be well planned and coordinated for me to do something else on the stage. Although I love it. I love being, you know, in front of an audience. I'm born and raised a ham. I discovered it, I think probably at the age of 10, that sitting here in front of you is one of the greatest experiences that one can feel. It really is. You have to all try it.
I don't know, I'm sensing Twin Peaks, the musical on Broadway.
Oh my God.
Leland Palmer could come back then.
That's an idea.
Well, they have a Spider-Man musical. They have Mean Girls the musical, The Toxic Avenger, Evil Dead musical.
Oh my God, Twin Peaks the musical.
Twin Peaks the musical. Twin Peaks the musical. We're both getting calls from David's office like, hey, shut up.
That's a fantastic idea.
Hashtag Twin Peaks the musical.
Well, you heard it here first. It's your fault.
And you would get more than 2 words in that.
All right. Yeah. You betcha.
Yeah. Who wants to line up in the back and meet this guy? Yeah. We're going to make an organized line. We're going to go down this aisle and line up, and he'll be over in that corner in about 5 minutes. So thank you so much for sharing.
Yes, thank you all. Thank you.